Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. Real Madrid take Chelsea apart at Stamford Bridge thanks to Karim Benzema's hat-trick. Manchester City find a way past Atletico Madrid at the Etihad. Liverpool jump to a 3-1 lead over Benfica in Portugal. Our latest thoughts ahead of Sunday's big match between City and Liverpool, and the ramifications of Burnley's comeback win over Everton at Turf Moor. All that and more coming right up. Okay, Robbie Earle, lots to discuss in this midweek edition. First, we've got to say though, we've both got unusual backgrounds. We are on location in Manchester, England, of course, for the big one on Sunday when City take on Liverpool. We're here. We're going to cover the Newcastle game. We're going to be there pitch side tomorrow. Villa Park tomorrow. No, it's Villa Park on Saturday, and of course, Man City. Yeah. So,
looking forward to it, mate. We've been welcomed to Manchester with some grey skies and a bit of rain, and make us feel like home and what we've missed. And looking forward to a great weekend. Obviously, with pandemics and COVID, it's been a while since we've done one of these. And at first for Tim Howard, our new studio buddy, his first time on the road. So we'll show him a few sites, maybe a few fish and chips, a pint of beer maybe when we're all over.
Perfect.
But what a week we've had of midweek football, Champions League and Premier League and stories breaking. I suppose the big story would have been Chelsea, Rob, yesterday at home to Real Madrid. Chelsea obviously holders of the title against the Madrid team. Now, I think generally people have tended to say, well, it's not the Madrid of old. They're not quite that team with that threat that we've known in the past. That they're aging, they're coming in. I thought it was a little shot in the arm about quality, Robert, and you can't beat a good old enough and a bit a good young. And then when I talk about good old, and I'm talking about Luka Modric, who's 36 years of age, and Karim Benzema, who's 34 years of age. Who I thought were two outstanding performers of a night at Stamford Bridge. In a game, Rob, that I have to say, in its entirety now, gives Chelsea a huge problem of staying in this competition and hanging on to the title.
Yeah, it does. I'm not writing them off just yet, Rob. Of course, incredibly difficult experience, that Real Madrid have, and that it's tough to imagine they'll let it go. But Chelsea still have a chance. I mean, I thought, apart from the experience, Rob, and the know-how, real quality. I mean, the crosses for the goals. I mean, the first Benzema goal where he flicks it around the corner, Vinicius Junior. A lot's talked about the header, Rob, on the run. Yeah, really good contact into Rufinet. Strong header. But what about the ball? The delivery of that cross. That it was right where it wanted to be, and he didn't have a ton of time to look up and make the ball. So the cross-in was superb. Luka Modric, you just talked about him. The cross for Benzema's second header goal, which is a stunning header, by the way.
Brilliant.
I mean, off the side of his head almost to try, to find that tiny window. It just smacked of quality, Rob. And, we know that Real Madrid have got the players to do that. To be fair to them, they also don't mind rolling their sleeves up, getting behind the ball, because that's what Chelsea's football, that's what it kind of makes you do, because it's such we've said it a million times, such a slow, steady build-up that teams just drop behind the ball, Rob. And then it becomes the same old story with Chelsea. Can we find a way through? And is it overplaying another way of saying it, Rob, that Tuchel's football is so steady, so precise, and so careful and not maybe direct enough that this is their Achilles heel, where they're against teams that defend, pretty stoutly and catch them on a counter-attack.
Yeah, I think, if you look at probably the difference between them and Chelsea or certainly them and maybe Spurs, when Spurs don't have half as much possession and control of them. But when Spurs go on the attack, it's with speed, it's with incision, it's quick passing, it's forward passing, it's movements that you rarely see, like you say, that it's almost Chelsea allow a team to get numbers back to block things off that Spurs don't allow, that Liverpool don't allow. And maybe that speed of play, the argument whether Lukaku fits and what's the right fit. it might be that slightly slower pace is meaning that things aren't quite happening as quickly for those front players. And we haven't really seen a dominant Chelsea front player for the last couple of years since Tuchel's been there.
See, Rob, like I think about Manchester City, right? Yeah. Because the general build-up is very similar to Man City. Man City are very careful, patient, in and out, but then they've got real game plan, real strategy to get in behind. You know, the little triangles, the combinations, the overloading on a side, and that's how they break teams down. Chelsea don't have the ability to do that anywhere near as well. So then there's the struggles to find a way through, whichever forward it is, by the way, whichever forward it seems to be. Yeah. So it's something that I would hope that Thomas Tuchel tries to address. I mean, how long we've been saying it now for a long time, Rob. I mean, of course, in general, they're a really good side, and they, with that possession and with the quality in the Premier League,
mate, that style won them the Champions League.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did against City, and it's but that was a counter-attacking goal against Man City. It wasn't a find a way through against a tight defensive unit. So, yeah, and often you don't get that sort of quality, Rob, on a counter-attack. When teams break on Chelsea, for the most part, the quality was absolutely amazing, just stunning from Karim Benzema, Rob, who, a hat-trick against PSG, a hat-trick here. Yeah. And the third goal, Edouard Mendy, Rob, has been superb for Chelsea in general. Some of the saves he makes, incredible.
Yeah.
Do we just have to say, this is his footballing mistake that is going to happen maybe once or twice a season, or should he have just cleared his lines, taken no risk with it?
I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt based on what he's done, his performances, Rob, and the influence he's had on that back line. Replacing Kepa, who was a little bit in and out and erratic. And it's also symptomatic, and I heard a couple of, is ever we try and get a sense of what Chelsea fans are. And there was a talk, that is the stuff off the pitch helping or not? And obviously that was always going to come into in terms of like, it needs a little bit of direction from there. I mean, on the pitch, that's 7 goals in 2 games, Brentford, Real Madrid, Rob, which is very unlike the Tuchel teams that we saw keep the clean sheets. And then you look at some personal performances, like Christensen absolutely got mauled by Vinicius Junior, had to come off at half-time. And N'Golo Kante couldn't live with Cruz and Modric in the middle of the plot, came off at half-time. Edouard Mendy makes a mistake. So some key players who you've had who've been real solid performers for you as well are not quite playing on top of the game now, whether that's shape, whether that's stuff that's going on the day-to-day basis of the football club, Rob, and we don't know how things are behind the scene. But it's a little kind of, Tuchel's got to get things together. And I heard him in an interview, he was asked after the game, how, what do you think you can do better in the second leg? And he said, we're not worrying about the second leg, we're worrying about Southampton this weekend, because at the moment we're not good enough to match anybody in this league, never mind going into European competition.
Just on that point, Rob, that you started with there, and could it start to affect the team, Rob, the situation and the uncertainty about some of the players? And I know they had a brilliant kind of first few weeks. The spotlight's on the football club, reacted really well. We talked about that, and the manager, they won all the games. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit of a cop-out excuse.
I don't think we should give him an excuse, and we don't have to. All I would say, Rob, is, and you know it very well, that the regularity of things happening at a football club are good and important. You get in a certain time, you train, you get your warm downs, your massages, you get mentally ready, you do your tactics, all those. There's certain things that happen. If some of them start to be affected or are being affected by some of the stuff that's going off the pitch, whether the manager's views them, whether Petr Cech's working in a different way, whether things are not quite the same, it does have an effect. It does affect you, Rob, on a Saturday.
Just last point, Rob, I want to ask you about. On the 69th minute, Lukaku was on the field, had a header from exactly 6 yards out, frustrated, he missed the target. I was chatting to Jorge, our producer, before this, Rob, and he sort of said, Lukaku really is the player that Chelsea need to do what Benzema's doing, to come up with some quality in this competition. The money they paid, and I know it's been frustrating, and I'm not blaming him for that one opportunity. It's been a difficult time, but God, I mean, the Lukaku kind of whole thing, it's been pretty disastrous, Rob, hasn't it, over the last few months, not being in the side and not playing well and falling out with the manager. It's not ideal, is it?
You go back to this competition, Rob, and you say they won it with a counter-attack goal against Manchester City, and everybody was talking about Chelsea, 4 titles and 4 things, and Lukaku was the guy who was going to be bringing something different. The 20 goals they need to challenge for a title, and the goal threat and the ability to lead a line in European football. And you're right, because I sort of wrote the same thing. What a contrast between Benzema and Lukaku on a day when one guy showed at 34, his movement was good. He dropped in deep, Rob. He made it difficult for Chelsea to play through midfield. His runs in the box, his understanding, just his hunger. Contrast so sharply with where Lukaku is at the moment and his mindset. It's a tough one. It's a tough time for the player. It's a tough time for the manager. It's a tough time for the club because I'm not sure what the solution is, Rob.
Yeah, what's funny, Rob, going through those things there. I've watched Benzema for decades almost. I followed him, for Real Madrid in La Liga. And talk about a mindset. You talk about a professionalism. He was playing second, third fiddle at this football club with Ronaldo. Well, what flipping pro? What a pro! Just got on and done his thing. Added what he could add. Never moaning, never groaning. Lukaku could do a lot worse. And he's
going to have to get his head down, Rob. He's going to have to work as hard as he can. And he's going to have to do his job. But I think it's a tough one for Chelsea. I actually think I'm not sure that Real Madrid are going to allow them a 2-goal deficit to get back in the game. But you say, listen, early goals, different mentality, maybe they can make it work. But it's going to be a difficult one.
Right. Okay, next game, Rob, we're going to touch briefly on is Villarreal 1, Bayern Munich 0. First leg, of course, in this competition. Unai Emery, it's not a coincidence, is it? It's not a coincidence. That I just did a little bit looking around with Villarreal. They're like 7th in the league table right now, Rob. 7th. Yeah. They lost the last 2 La Liga games to teams that are almost in the relegation zone. I think Cadiz and Levante. And yet, when you look at the team, it's full of ex-Premier League, not rejects, but the guys that didn't work out. I'll run through a few of them. Danjuma scored the winning goal, by the way. Arnaud Danjuma was at Bournemouth for a couple of seasons. Etienne Capoue, of course, we know at Spurs and at Watford. Alberto Moreno didn't play in this game, but it's Liverpool. Francis Coquelin at Arsenal, remember him? Serge Aurier, Spurs. Juan Forth, the Argentine at Tottenham, and Gio Lo Celso, Spurs as well. So some of those are good players. But talk about throw a team together in some ways with so many former Premier League players, with a manager that obviously former league manager as well, Unai Emery. And it's just like, wow, to beat Bayern Munich, and they're the strong side from Bayern. I know they've got a few injuries and the bench was affected, but it's a strong Bayern team. And Villarreal to win the game 1-0 is pretty blimmin' amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely amazing. And it's a sort of testament to Emery, who was a bit of a figure of fun at times in English football and not taken seriously, and sometimes how he spoke in his interviews and the tactics. And we heard what he doesn't do so well, not what he does. But his record, Rob, with Sevilla in European competition and now Villarreal. And it also shows, Rob, doesn't have to be Galactico superstars. If you're well organised, put together, people all pushing for the same thing. And sometimes you get a little bit of that, like a manager who probably feels he's not been totally appreciated. Some players who've been rejected who probably feeling like, I'll show people. You start putting that collectively together, you start having something quite strong.
Yeah, and also, by the way, a club like Villarreal that probably doesn't expect a ton, Rob, where a lot of these players were at clubs that did expect a lot and the pressure was on and you've got to perform at Spurs or Arsenal or wherever you're at. And it might be a nice club to be at and underdogs and play on the counter-attack against Bayern Munich and find a way to come through. Now, you'd probably still favour Bayern Munich, Rob, in the second leg at home to find a way through. They probably will. It's just a good story and obviously a good manager. I read a bit, Rob, about him. I think it's in the Athletic about he's talking about Newcastle United and they offered him, wanted him to go there. He didn't feel it was right. He was enjoying his time at Villarreal. But just a good time story for a manager. You're right. I mean, he was a little bit ridiculed, and it just didn't work out at Arsenal. As we know, a very difficult job with lots of work that's been done really well by Mikel Arteta so far. So, but great, good for him, good for Villarreal.
Finishing your point there, actually, you're right as well. It also shows that, listen, the Premier League isn't for everybody. These good players who come to the Premier League that just don't fit and have to go elsewhere and prove that there can be still good players in Europe. It just means that it hasn't worked in the Premier League for them. And Unai Emery, I'm sure, will be plotting a route to beating Bayern, or at least getting a result in Bayern and giving his team a chance to get into semi-finals.
Okay, my friend, next one. A team that did get a result, very, very difficult to get a result, but Manchester City did find a way past Atletico Madrid in the first leg, of course, of the Champions League quarter-final. Kevin De Bruyne scored on 70 minutes. Lovely, lovely football from Phil Foden, came on as a substitute, puts the ball through. De Bruyne just takes that opportunity like the class player that he is. Yeah. But, I mean, gosh, you get me cracking on Atletico Madrid and the tactics and the antics of
I only ended because the games were on and we kind of split. So I sort of said, I'll keep a look at an eye on Liverpool. So you go back and you see some of the games and you see the highlights and you see the headlines again. I try and pick up what people say on social media, on the radios, and I suppose the first question is, Rob, people were putting out there like anti-football. It's a disgrace. It's like 5-5-0 setup that we've never seen before. It's like, no shots on target. How can this guy be getting away with it? And I kind of was listening to it and smiling. I was thinking, that's music to Simeone's ears. It's absolute music to his ears, Rob. He ain't going to come and play an open game and play with City and let them dominate the ball. He's going to do what he does. And although I don't particularly like it, I don't particularly want to see my football like that. I appreciate that. Listen, if that's how he feels it's going to be done, you do it, Rob. And he's ended up coming away from Manchester City with a 1-0 defeat that gives his team a great chance of progressing in the tournament.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the bottom line. And he didn't break any rules. Yeah. It's just, and obviously the fact that he's having a great time at the football club. They love him. They trust him. The La Liga champions, they got to final this competition before. It's just so crazy looking at it. It just is like a 5-3-2 we've seen a million times, but without possession, more so in the first half, was a little different in the second half. Those two forwards, Rob, just split wide to make five in midfield in front of the five at the back. And it literally was 5-5 with nobody anywhere near the front. And I again, understanding that there's no rules breaking, you do what you got to do. I'm still like, God, really? Like, you got Griezmann, you got João Felix, who looks a brilliant younger player, and they had a few looks on counter attacks, But I suppose the bottom line is, who cares? They want to get to the semi-final.
For him,
they're in the game. And they're in the game, and he can do it, Rob. I don't think there's many managers at certain clubs that why wouldn't we see that more in Premier League sides? Do that. We don't. But why wouldn't Burnley play 5-5-0, or why wouldn't other clubs do it? If it potentially. I mean, by the way, it's important to say it didn't work. Yeah, and did find a way through. Yeah. But in a two-legged situation. You're making it a tight game to give them a chance at their home stadium, which is a crazy, great, strong atmosphere. And if you thought there were antics and a little bit of play acting and a little bit of winding up some of the City players, we are guaranteed to have that in the second leg, fouling. Managers probably squaring off. All this emotional kind of tactics that they can use, they will use it. And it's going to be all the experience of Pep and those experienced City players to find a way through that, because this is still very much game on.
I mean, you have to deal, like you say, with the tactics and the antics and the atmosphere. And it was interesting because I read a really good report that said what Simeone's strength is, even in defeat, he makes you the win feel so ugly that there's no satisfaction for City, really. City still probably feel like, we won, but it wasn't a great game, or we won, but we didn't get. He's got that ability to put to make it grey, everything look a shade of grey, to the point, Rob, where it's something he does now. Whether it's his own trait or he's talked before about the way he works and his mindset. They're running off after the game, not shaking hands. You're okay with that?
He's always done it, hasn't he?
I know he's always done it. So that's not, if I always shoot someone and I keep shooting them, it's not always, I'm not okay with it, mate, for me.
No, I don't like it. I hate it
at all. I mean, I'd even hate it less if he did the hand where you're not looking like, I'll do the thing because we're sportsmen. But just kind of, does it.
Yeah, hate it.
Nah, I think it's disrespectful. I think it's a bad look on the game. I think in climate that we're in with the world in the position we are, I don't think it sends a good message at all. I just don't like it. I didn't like it, and I just wanted to chuck that one out on you. And then the other one, Rob, and you can answer them both, was Pep, really. I thought, like the Pep coming on at the end with Jack Grealish and Pep at the side of the pitch, I thought we saw a little bit of drive in Pep that tells me how important this competition is to him.
So you weren't worried so much about getting involved and his emotions being on. You thought, by the way, I didn't think he lost his. He was right there.
Yeah,
Correa knocked the ball in.
Onto Jack Grealish's
face.
You're
just saying in general.
I quite liked it, to be honest.
Well, as long as, again, you can keep a lid on that and it doesn't overspill into the second leg. Because apart from, I remember I've talked about this before about Simeone, Rob, about not just running down the tunnel, but also in general on the sideline.
Yeah, he's behaving
like crazy, jumping around, Anyway, listen. So what? I mean, it's the way he does things. Yeah, I don't like it. But obviously, the team, do pretty well on him being a manager. He's been there a long time now.
About that, isn't it? The edge and the stress and the thing. But I just thought it was in Pep. I thought first rule of management, like sticking up for your player, which I thought he did well with Jack, and then the second rule was almost like it's telling me that this is this important, and you can. If you can stay control, you can be emotional with control, and that's a good space to be. And I think that's where his team have got to be when they face Atleti away from home.
This was a really difficult matchup, Rob. I'll tell you what, mate. I think that Atletico Madrid are one of two teams that can beat Man City in this competition this season. And that's why it continues to be a very difficult matchup. Second leg, of course, it's going to be difficult to get through. I just think that Atletico Madrid and Liverpool are the ones, one or two legs that match up pretty well, and City would find difficult. I think City, whether it's Real Madrid, Bayern, Chelsea, Villarreal, Benfica, the other teams, I would strongly fancy Man City. So this was always going to be a very difficult game for them. And just quickly recapping the game, Rob, it was. I mean, there's so little spaces to work in. Interesting with Phil Foden, Rob. Didn't start the game. And I think everybody accept, I think the manager as well, that he's one of the best players in the team. I just wondered, and want to ask you, he obviously knew, Pep, what was going to happen in this game. Do you think it was a deliberate ploy to keep him on the bench, to bring him in, 65, 70 minutes or whatever it was around that period?
68 minutes. But it was three of them, Rob. It was three of them, wasn't it? So it was Grealish, Foden and Jesus. For Gundogan, Mahrez and Sterling. It was almost I think he played this out in his mind.
And it's just with it, again, for maybe for another podcast, the 5 subs thing, right? Obviously, it's going to change football a little bit, because Atletico Madrid, a few minutes before that, brought on three new runners. Absolutely. 3 new runners to go and do the same thing. It's a different game. Well, it's a different game if you've got that amount of subs.
You can manage your game differently now, actually, with those options.
And I suppose if you're Man City, it's nice you've got 3 more attacking, talented players to come on and counteract that. Others won't. It's a complicated debate that, Rob. We'll have at some point. But no, is this the future in some ways with this? I don't know. Do you think Pep deliberately did that as a ploy to win the game late?
I think Pep plays out most games, most situations in his mind anyway. We know how a cerebral thinker of the game he is. And I'm thinking that he's thinking it's going to be tight, it's going to be this, they're going to be there. Then I can go with a different flavour. Then I can change the look. And Foden's got this beautiful kind of, somebody again described him as a street footballer. That he brings a little bit of street to City's kind of very, deliberate way of playing. And, he picks a ball up, Rob, and he almost entices 3 or 4 players to come to him, to know that once they do, he's then going to find the space. Initially, he could have knocked that ball to De Bruyne, and there's probably a chance that the defender would either cut it out or blocked off De Bruyne's run. But he almost turned and went, "Oh, come on then," and took like a left foot, right foot to draw them in. And by the time they did, then it's a beautiful passing goal. I mean, the pass was beautiful. The goal was, and then that's what he can do. And he's a special player. He's a special part of that team, whether he's starting, coming from the bench, what position he plays, whether it's the wide positions, whether it's central. He's turning into becoming a very, very special footballer.
Just last thing for me, Rob, on the team and stuff. And I know that Ruben Diaz is out with an injury.
Yeah.
And Nathan Ake did pretty well at left back. Yeah. I still feel that it's a weaker team without Diaz, because then you have Cancelo and Walker, by the way, Walker as well. Walker, so Cancelo would switch to left back. You'd have Walker playing at right back. They got away with it, and I think this is what's been better City over the last couple of seasons. They're less vulnerable on a counter attack when they had blimmin' Otamendi and somebody else with him. Stones wasn't playing well. They looked super vulnerable on a counter attack. They didn't give much away, Rob, in this game as well. And I know they didn't attack much, Atleti, but I still think that's an improvement to the team that's going to keep them in good stead for this competition.
Yeah, emotional control would be as important as anything else as ball control against Atletico Madrid in the next leg. But I still think City will have enough to get through that one, my friend. Let's turn to Benfica, Liverpool away. I think this was always seen as a winnable game. It was a winnable draw, probably a favourable draw for Liverpool when the quarterfinals were made. And Liverpool, I think, did what would be expected. Scored to Canute Earle with a goal from a set-piece corner, which is becoming a bit of a thing for them, get the goal. The second goal, Rob, was a beautiful ball in from Trent Alexander-Arnold to lose. Brilliant ball set up for Mane to score, and at 2-0, you're thinking it's done. And then we probably had 20, 25 minutes second half when Benfica came in, the crowd got behind, and the game came in the balance all of a sudden. And that was really the test for Liverpool. And then, again, a bit similar to City, 61 minutes on the clock, made a note. Firmino, Jota, Henderson came on. For Mo, for Mane and Thiago. And Liverpool go on, get a third. Diaz, back in Portugal, gets them a third, which gives them a 2-goal gap now, which they probably won. And Liverpool see it out. Probably could have gone on and got a fourth. Jota had a decent chance, a couple of other half chances. Could have made it 4, but 3-1, I think Jurgen Klopp talked about, 2-0 advantage is probably where we were at the first half before we gave them things. So we said halfway in the tie now, we're in a good spot. But he also mentioned, it was quite interesting, Rob, and again, want to get your thought on. He started to talk a little bit about managing the minutes and what's coming up and how important that is now. And also a little bit, Rob, about the depth now that he's got allows him to do those things more than he could in the past.
Yeah, and I don't know. Again, we're going back to these sub-situation, Rob, and it's difficult to know how to feel about it yet. It's something that we're seeing more, of course, now the 5 subs. Are we okay with starting lineups and strategies and big changes affecting tactics and stuff? Are we okay with that, or I don't know. It's something we'll just have to sort of see how it goes. But I mean, the fact is that the squad is better now.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that, in certain games you can rest, you can rotate. I mean, Mo Salah's been the only player, I've got to say, Rob, who's looked a little off, by the way. Looks a little off over the last couple of matches for Liverpool. We'll get and talk about the big game after this little chat about, who might start for Liverpool. But there's no question, Diogo Jota and Luis Diaz has brought, incredible quality and production straight away, and the depth of the squad is stronger, which is great. And maybe we're going to see more and more of this, where some stars play, some stars are on the bench. Do you know what I mean? And they're not all going to play like I would expect fans would want. What's the
biggest thing that you dislike about it? Because I don't particularly feel that strong. I mean, is it more about the advantage to the bigger teams with the strongest?
No, it's not so much that, Rob. It's not so much that. It's the way that this is potentially going to change the game in terms of lineups and teams that play in a certain way that might get tired over a 90-minute period, but only change certain players. They could say if I'm playing in a midfield, Rob, or I'm coaching a team and I'm playing a top side and we're an average side, and I've got 5 players in midfield that I'm saying, run your socks off. You give me everything for 60 minutes or even a half, because I'm going to change you all out and bring a different set of guys, like a different line of players to affect the other team. And I don't know if I'm okay with that. I mean, like 11v11 with, I guess we're going from football being tweaked by 3 subs by football being changed with 5 subs. And it's a subtle difference. But with any 3 subs, right, you're more likely going to play your strongest team. You're maybe not going to rest your big stars with the thought that they're the second line of players to come in because this team run themselves out. But then they can bring in extra people. I don't know. That's what I'm struggling with. 5 subs, half of the outfield team can be changed tactically. For some people are into all this dynamic, but we want that. Like,
all the game, it brings in a dynamic. I think, if games when you're 2-0, 3-0 down, you can almost go, you know what, let's have a go for it and try and get games. Will that create more excitement? I don't know. It's an interesting one. I don't probably have as strong a feeling on it in terms of the ability to change games, because I think if clubs and managers can, I think that's a nice thing to have. I think it broadens you as a coach, makes you start thinking about a game in a different way now and the approach in a different way.
It's different, isn't it? Yeah. Listen, you're right, Rob, but as long as it is kind of different then.
Yeah.
So the game will be different. And that's kind of that's a big deal, that the game, our game, is going to change quite a lot with these extra subs. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, Rob, and maybe after a few, particularly next season when it's going to be regular in the Premier League, God, do we need to change it? The game's been 3 subs for forever, and the COVID situation, I totally understand, agree with that. Extra subs to help with that, totally get it. But this for next season, this isn't a 1-season thing. This is
it's ongoing.
Ongoing, which the big clubs like, because they can rest. Like if we're going to watch Liverpool play, and they're 3-0 up. Oh, the stars can come off. All you guys come off. 55 minutes, come off. Let's get some other guy. Is that fair for the fans to want to see, the stars of their team, or even home fans to see the stars of Liverpool coming into a Middlesbrough or a smaller club? I don't know. It's just that's where I have an issue with it. It's not so much the better teams have better squad. Well, no, because the first 11's better, so the sub's going to be better.
Quality, the quality raises all through the league. So
it's not that. It's just the way tactically, what I'm getting at is that this could be quite more of a change than maybe we expect. But maybe football can look at it in the future and change. I doubt it. This is probably going to the way it's going to go. And I know there's so many games, but I'd still prefer to see that there are 11 the team represented by this strongest 11 that can be tweaked by 2 or 3 subs, more than, wow, there's more than one team in this team, because we've got other things that we can go to. It's up for debate, and whatever people think, great. We'll certainly monitor it. I will, because it's kind of, it's pretty different. All right, so let's wind it forward, my friend, shall we, and get to the nitty-gritty of this weekend. Sunday, they see 11:30 Eastern time on USA. Man City host Liverpool in what many think is title decider. Let me hit you straight from the top, Rob, and my thoughts on that. Liverpool can't afford to lose the game. And I'll say right now, I'm not saying it's going to be over, but if Liverpool lose this game, that's 4 points difference, same games played, and Liverpool have a tougher schedule. For that 2 whole results, given both of the schedules, City's is much gentler than Liverpool's. That's my headline off the top. Liverpool can't afford to lose it, because then it'd be very, very difficult to win it. Wouldn't disagree with that. Although
this league and the teams we say that are Palace and the Southampton, and we've seen teams have troubled City on days when it hasn't worked. I'm seeing a day when it's about City's possession versus Liverpool's goal threat. If City create enough of the good chances that they can create with that football, they'll win the game. And if they don't take those chances based off that possession, the one team who can hurt them in a way, probably Spurs front three at the best. The only other team who can hurt them in the way that wins the game is Liverpool for me. That's where I see the big challenge, the big opportunity for both these teams.
Rob, I've been, since the last week, really, I've been thinking about this game. Thought about the game on the flight over here for hours, thought about it, made notes. And, nothing that anybody doesn't know. But when you go through these teams, Rob, they're incredibly similar, They're incredibly similar. They really, really are. From just real quick, a midfield that both have got physicality and creativity. They've both got creative and very, very ruthless forwards in the attacking line. They've both got brilliant back fours with outstanding fullbacks. They've both got amazing goalkeepers. They've both got brilliant top of this game managers. They've both got experience. They've both been champions. They've both been here before. It's so similar. They both like to attack. They both like to score goals. They both love to do that thing. The only thing where they're a little bit different, and this is down to Pep's philosophy, is that Pep likes possession a little more than Jurgen Klopp. And how that shows in a team is in the midfield. And they both play with Rodri and Fabinho. Liverpool play with Henderson and probably Thiago, and Pep goes with Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo. He goes with an extra creative guy because he values possession, patience, and control more than Jurgen, that's a bit more vertical, a bit more quick on the attacking football that they play. I mean, they're both a blimmin' amazing. I think it's great. We're going to see him in good fettle. Tuesday to Sunday games. There's going to be enough time for the players to recover. It's all on. I can't wait. And, anybody who thinks that there's a strong favorite is wrong.
Absolutely.
It's just a brilliant, brilliant occasion. I'm so honored, pleased, and proud to be here, mate. It's going to be superb.
I had more, again, you start making your little notes, start getting your thoughts in your head around it. And I had to go back, Rob, and I watched the highlights again of the game early in the season. It's the best game of football. It's one of the best games of Premier League football I've ever seen. Rob. Just the pace and the quality and the movement and the finishing. And as you say, two teams now who have raised the bar in a way that maybe United, Chelsea, Arsenal have done in the past. To a certain degree, these two are banging it out and playing at another level to everybody else in the league.
Superb.
Makes it a tough one to call, to be honest. Makes it a really tough one to call.
Well, I'm going to try and call it now because, again, I've had too much spare time to think about this. I think there's a couple of areas, and by the way, of course, there's 100 ways that this game could be won or lost. Whatever, like mistakes. There's so much of it, but I think there's two parts of the game, Rob, that I think could be critical. Midfield area and transitions and turnovers. So whichever set of midfield players can have a ball and have the time to get their head up and slide in those front players, then they got a great chance because both teams play high. Both teams get their fullbacks forward. But, so whether it's Man City making a mistake, giving the ball away, or Liverpool pressing to win the ball and then get their head up and slide in your Manes and your Salahs. That's a way that the game could be won on us. And by the way, both teams can do that. Midfield kind of time and space, which is going to be rare. The other area, which is what talk about Liverpool a lot, but it's interesting, is their right-hand side. We know that Trent's an incredible player, creative, makes things happen, scores goals, creates goals, and Mo Salah, but also Man City's left. So the same area of the field, probably Cancelo, Gundogan, Grealish, that triangle over there. And that movement with Foden, if he plays as 9, or again, we don't know until we see the lineup. That's pretty tough to stop. And can Trent, maybe with the help of Henderson on the right?
Yeah, Hendo's tends to go out right, hasn't he?
He'll go out there.
A little bit of a thing, yeah.
Can they handle that City's football from the left? Because we saw it. Was it the first game, Rob? We talked about that. The Foden dropped deep, swept the ball out from that side a lot. And that's where City tried to, and that's where their best kind of combinations are to get in behind. Those two areas, the middle of the park and that fast, I think Liverpool's right, Man City's left, is going to be, for me, the most interesting part of the game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many areas. There's so much to look forward to. It's like you need eyes everywhere, but it's going to be great. We're going to be there, my friend. We're going to be watching the game, and we will be doing a podcast just for all our listeners and viewers. We will be doing a podcast live from the Etihad after the game on Sunday, so make sure you tune in for that one. I think we're going to wrap things up, mate, with going just back to the good old Premier League. And there was a good old match with good old lot riding on it when Burnley hosted Everton at Turf Moor. And in Sean we trust, my friend. What did I say to you? On Wednesday we trust. He knows.
There it goes.
And let me talk about.
Oh, go on then.
Talk about two managers in similar positions, knowing the value of what this game means, knowing the value of what a win does. One handled it expertly in the manner that I expect, the reason why you back him to get out of the job. The other guy looks like it's starting to affect him because he doesn't have the base of experience to rely on to be sure of some of the decisions and some of the things he's saying. He came out with a line, Rob, Frank Lampard, after he said, if the players didn't know it before, they know it now, we're in a fight. I thought that was a real strange thing to say when I'm an Everton manager on a run of form they have. They not want to point away from home. His record's poor, performances haven't been bad, people have been sent off. If we didn't know it before, we know it now, we're in a fight. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's 7 losses in 9 in the Premier League for Frank Lampard. A 2-1 advantage, looking kind of comfortable. Yeah. The report of Sean Dyche's words at halftime, Rob, also tell you everything. Absolutely. He's basically said, like, I'm paraphrasing here, boys, Everton don't know how to win.
Correct.
And he's absolutely right. Correct. They don't know how to win right now. They just don't. And with all the changes and the different manager and the players being out, there's no. I think the guys in our studio, Rob, said it pretty well. Like, it's only half time. Everton have got to come out and secure it and kick on or defend. And obviously couldn't manage to do it. Defensive mistakes again. Yeah. Set pieces and defensive, not just but really bad errors that go to conceding goals. And it's like, it's such a different. This is so weird to even think about Everton. And we sort of talked about it, Rob, 2 or 3 months ago. Well, Everton, they're not playing well, but it has become real. This did become very real. At 2-1, Rob, they were, I didn't even know what the minutes were, not that far away from being a ton of points away from the relegation zone. Really.
It was about 60 minutes, Rob. Richarlison gets the second penalty. There's a 7-point gap between the two teams. Right. By the end of the game, there's a 6-point swing. There's 1 point between the two teams in the momentum. And based on that point, Burnley go away to Norwich. Everton are at home to Manchester United on Saturday. By Saturday, the weekend, by the end of the weekend, could be roles reversed. They could be below the bottom line. And let me give you a history lesson, Mr. Mustoe, because I like to improve your breadth of knowledge. The last time Everton weren't playing in the top level of English football, Winston Churchill was a prime minister. There you go. There's a stat for you, my friend. 1954.
Holy moly.
Was the last time they weren't playing.
Wow.
There's a realistic chance, Robert. I looked at the next 5 fixtures.
Wow.
United, Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, Leicester.
I'll tell you what, I'll carry on. Watford, Brentford, Palace, Arsenal. I had a real quick top through, right? And if things go pretty well, they could get 8 points. If they beat Watford, they beat Brentford, you draw Palace and you draw one of those first games. I mean, they're not done and dusted yet. Burnley, their running is gentler. I get it, but they're not very good as well. And they can go long periods without scoring, look like scoring. They can lose games as well. So I think everybody would agree now that Everton, based on the run-in, are favourites to be relegated with these two. It's not done and dusted for me.
The most damning thing of the evening, and you said it, when at half-time, I think Sean Dyche said to his players, they don't know how to win. Tells you, Rob, that people don't care. Everybody's looking forward to Everton. You'd rather play Everton than Watford right now. Watford have a better structure, and they've got dangerous forwards who can hurt you. They're banging it, Rob. They're banging it.
Let's just try and be quick on this, Rob. And it's a big question. How the heck did we get to this point with Everton? We don't have to deep delve too far into it, and I'm sure it's a long. And Everton fans will be able to give us a lot more knowledge over a longer period of time. Bad decisions, bad ownership, bad recruitment, bad manager decisions.
Too many bad decisions reflect on the pitch.
Yeah,
and get you in the position they're in. Too many of those bad decisions.
Well, they're 10th last year, Rob. Yeah. I think they were 10th last year.
That wasn't supposed to be good enough. That was we were better than this. We've got to look for bigger and better things. And this team, Rob, isn't. I mean, I looked through the lineup. It isn't that bad. Kenny, Godfrey, Braithwaite, Milichenko, Doucouré, Holgate, Iwobi, Gordon, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison.
Well, the front three. I mean, Calvert-Lewin's a bit off still at the moment. Front three, I thought Richarlison, by the way, stepped up. I thought Richarlison, not just the penalties, but his general game, flipping out. He stuck his chest out, and it looked like a special game to him. Yeah. Doucouré, I think, is a good player. Holgate in midfield, we saw it the previous game. He had to do that. That's a big decision from Frank Lampard. You could throw him back and make a back three and rejig midfield in a different way. Holgate, I just don't think defensively is where their big problems are. I mean, wouldn't you go with more guys back there in the centre back, Rob, to try and help? I mean, Nikolenko is a young kid at left back. John Joe Kenny got done by Charlie Taylor for
on the outside left
foot, winning goal.
Yeah.
I mean, defensively, Frank's got to stop the rot, Rob. He's got to stop the rot and grind out a point or something. And he's got games here that go and do it. Go and flip and do it, Simeone.
Yeah.
Go and play 5-5-0.
Yeah, stink the place out. Yeah.
Stink the place out. You're still a point. Grind away at some points. Keep trying to play or think you're a team that can play you out of trouble. And there aren't many that can do it. Newcastle, to be fair, and they're not out of it yet, but
look at the geezer who's standing opposite him with his ginger hair. He's done it for years and years, Rob, and doesn't mind that. Everyone tells the football's not great and this and that. Guy who believes in it, who knows what he's trying to do, and will have another great chance of keeping them in the league based on that. So Frank's got it all on, and he's going to need his coaching staff. He's going to need the people around him, and he needs his players to pretty get an understanding of where they are and what the situation is. Because right now, Rob, they would be one of my favourites of those three. You just can't see where it's coming.
Okay, Rob. Before we wrap up, mate, another bit of news that seems to be getting stronger now. Erik ten Hag is really favoured, it seems, to be the next manager of Manchester United. The sense is it's going to take a little bit of time for it to be confirmed. And I think realisation that it was Pochettino or Ten Hag. What are we thinking about that and the way that they've come about this decision? Well, it's not a decision yet, but the possibility of Erik ten Hag taking over as next manager.
Well, everything's up for debate a little bit how Manchester United go about the business and the Ralph Rangnick situation. I kind of feel as though the club needed to do something. I think things are starting to, behind the scenes, fall apart. Whether this Ten Hag thing gets announced soon, I'm not so sure, but I think it's in the background. I think he's talking about working with, backroom staff, Rob, and I believe your ex-boss, Steve McLaren's been mentioned to work together when they were in Holland. So I think it's one of those stories we'll follow and keep across as we go. And it might be one of those where we'll hear towards the end of the season, a bit like, you remember when Pep came in at Man City and Pellegrini was there, and it was sort of announced 3-4 weeks before the end of the season. I kind of feel we're more in that territory than any big announcement now, but it would look like Ten Hag's got above Pochettino in the reckoning, and he's going to be the man with the job of rebuilding Manchester United.
Yeah, of course, we'll get into more detail when it happens. It's still, I mean, listen, anybody, I think, is going to be a gamble to go in that football club. I think we've talked many times about the structure behind it, the recruitment side, the director of football side. I don't know whether that's strong enough to really enable a full recovery anytime soon. Ten Hag, of course, it's a huge jump up. Done a brilliant job at Ajax, but it'll always be talked about that this is such a big jump into a different league that he's not familiar with. Very smart coach, obviously. And we'll get into more details in the future. I'm still a little surprised that Pochettino seems to be losing this kind of race, if you like. But yeah, again, let's talk more about it when it happens. It's just, wow, it would be that'd be pretty big news if it's announced in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Always a story coming out of Manchester United, and always stories in this week's midweek podcast. When Liverpool and Manchester United, they've got victories that should see them through in the Champions League. Chelsea, they've got a Madrid mountain to climb if they're going to retain their title. While in the Premier League, Everton and Frank Lampard, they are really in it, and his players better recognise that pretty soon. We'll be back on Sunday. We talked about it, April the 10th, live from the Etihad. That big game, Manchester City hosting Liverpool. 1 versus 2 for what people are calling a title decider. We'll talk about it, break down all the action and all the big stories. Somewhere probably pitchside if we can on Sunday. But for now, I'm Earle, he's Mustoe, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, be healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.